What if the only joy in your life, the one person who saw you as more than invisible, was ripped away before your eyes? What if you were left bleeding in the street while your love was dragged into the darkness by men who feared nothing? And what if surviving that night meant becoming something you swore you'd never be? A beast of vengeance. This is the story of Michael Turner, a janitor, a man forgotten by society. And yet, he became the nightmare of a gang that thought they owned the streets. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see how love can survive in the darkest places. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the most powerful thing you would do for love? Michael Turner lived a quiet life, sweeping the marble floors of Westbrook Industries, a company that looked down on him like dust. His blue janitor's shirt carried stains that no bleach could erase, his shoes worn thin by years of silent service. He never asked for much. A paycheck, a roof, and peace. But peace came in the form of Emily Carter, a soft-spoken woman who lived across the hall from his tiny apartment. Emily was the kind of neighbor who smiled even when she was tired. She baked too many cookies and always shared. She asked Michael how his day went. Even when others walked past him like furniture, their friendship bloomed into late-night talks on the stairwell, laughter echoing through thin walls, and eventually love. Emily didn't care that Michael was a janitor. She didn't care that he carried himself with the weary weight of a black man in a city that judged him twice over. Once for his skin, and once for his station. She saw him, and to Michael, being seen was everything. But love always draws eyes. One of those eyes belonged to Vince Marlowe, a local gang enforcer. Vince wasn't used to being denied. His tattooed arms and leather jacket weren't just for show. They were warnings. Vince wanted Emily. He told her so. Emily, fearless, told him no. She told him she was with Michael, and that rejection was the spark that lit a fuse. One stormy night, Michael and Emily walked home after a simple dinner. The rain-slicked streets shone with fractured neon. Michael carried an umbrella, holding it steady over Emily while his own shoulders got wet. They laughed about something small, something ordinary, like people who still believed they had a future. Then, headlights dot, engines dot, the roar of tires. A black van skidded across the corner. Men poured out. Guns flashed in the night. Michael shoved Emily behind him, but the bullets came too fast. One tore into his chest. He hit the ground, blood seeping into his uniform. Emily's scream echoed off the walls as Vince himself stepped from the shadows. "Wrong choice, sweetheart," Vince sneered, gripping Emily by the arm. She fought. She clawed, but his men shoved her into the van. The door slammed. Tires screamed again. Michael, bleeding, reached out. His fingers touched nothing but wet concrete. His last sight before blacking out was Emily's terrified face pressed to the glass, disappearing into the night. What would you do if the only light in your life was stolen, and you were left to die? Tell me in the comments what you think Michael should do next. Doctors said the bullet missed his heart by inches. Weeks passed in a haze of morphine, surgeries, and whispered pity from nurses. He woke each morning to the sterile glow of hospital lights, alone. No Emily. No word. Only silence. He asked. He begged. But the police shrugged. "Gang trouble," they said. "We'll look into it." They never did. When Michael was finally discharged, he returned to his apartment and found emptiness. Emily's door locked, her windows dark, her life gone. Michael's heart broke twice. Once when they shot him, again when he realized the world had moved on without caring. Something inside him hardened. He was no longer just a janitor. He was a man with nothing left to lose. Michael began asking questions in the alleys, in the bars where the gang drank, in the corners where addicts whispered. He traded his last savings for information. Every answer was a puzzle piece, and every piece painted the same picture. Vince's gang had taken Emily, and no one would dare cross them. But Michael dared. He trained his body in silence, running through nights, pushing weights he could barely lift. His scars burned, but so did his fury. And then the beast was born. The first man to fall never saw it coming. He was a low-level dealer, bragging at a pool hall about a girl the boss had taken. Michael listened from the corner. He followed him into the alley. And there, under the flicker of a broken streetlight, Michael's fists spoke the language of rage. Blood sprayed across bricks. The man crumpled, whispering Emily's name through shattered teeth. Michael leaned close. Where is she? And so it began. One by one, Michael tracked the gang. A driver caught in his cab. A lookout cornered behind a bar. A thug dragged from his bed. Each encounter ended with broken bones and desperate whispers. Each whisper pulled Michael closer to Vince. But vengeance is never clean. The city began to whisper about a ghost in the alleys. A man who hunted the hunters. Police found bodies beaten, bloodied, sometimes worse. Witnesses spoke of a man with burning eyes and scars across his chest. Michael Turner, once invisible, had become a legend. Weeks stretched into months. Each night was darker than the last. Michael's hands grew calloused, his soul heavier. But still, no Emily. Every trail ended before her. Vince had buried her too deep. Until one night, Michael cornered Tony Vargas, Vince's right hand, in a warehouse by the docks. The fight was brutal. Chains swung. Knives flashed. Michael's blood mixed with Tony's on the floor. But when Michael pinned him down, his voice thundered. Where is she? Tony's eyes flickered with fear. She's gone. Vince made sure she'd never come back. Forget her, man. Forget her. But Michael couldn't forget. And so Tony died whispering lies. Or truths Michael refused to believe. Backhand index pointing right. Do you think Emily was still alive? Or had she been lost forever? Share your theory in the comments. The night came when only Vince remained. Michael stormed Vince's hideout like a storm. Guns roared, but Michael moved like death itself. Men fell one after another until he stood face to face with Vince. The fight shook the walls. Vince was strong, fueled by arrogance. Michael was stronger, fueled by loss. Every punch carried Emily's name. Every strike was justice unpaid. Finally, Michael slammed Vince against the wall, his hands around his throat. Vince gasped, his bravado gone. You'll never find her, he choked. Michael's voice was a growl. I already found you, and that's enough. With one final move, Michael ended Vince Marlowe. The beast had conquered the gang. But justice has its price. Sirens wailed. SWAT flooded the hideout. Michael, bleeding and exhausted, dropped to his knees as handcuffs clamped around his wrists. The headlines the next day didn't call him a hero. They called him a criminal. Janitor turns vigilante. The beast of Westbrook arrested after gang massacre. Backhand index pointing right. Do you think Michael deserves prison? Or was he only delivering justice the system refused to give? Comment what you would decide if you were the judge. Prison swallowed Michael like a grave. Bars clanged shut. Days blurred. He kept his head down, but whispers followed him. Even among killers, the beast was feared. Months passed. Then, one afternoon, as Michael lined up for roll call, a familiar voice cut through the noise. Turner? Michael's head snapped up. His chest froze. It was her, Emily, alive, dressed in the uniform of a correctional officer, her hair tied back, her eyes wide with disbelief. She looked at him as though seeing a ghost. Michael's heart thundered. Emily, his Emily, was alive. Their eyes locked, and the world fell away. Days later, she came to his cell on night duty. Her voice trembled as she whispered through the bars. I thought you were dead. I thought I lost you forever. Michael replied. Tears glistened in her eyes as she told him the truth. Vince had kept her hidden, threatened her family, broken her spirit. After his death, she was left wandering, lost, until she rebuilt herself in silence. Now she worked here, of all places, guarding men like the one who had once saved her. Their hands touched through cold steel. Their love reignited, not in the daylight, but in stolen whispers at midnight. Their love grew dangerous. Emily began sneaking to Michael's cell, their voices soft against the silence of midnight. They spoke of the life they could have had, the life they still might. And then, Emily made a choice. She smuggled him a duplicate key. Her hands shook as she pressed it into his palm. Tomorrow night, she whispered. We run. The plan was madness. Cameras, guards, a fortress. But love doesn't care about walls. When the hour came, Michael slipped from his cell, heart pounding. Emily led him through the labyrinth of corridors, her keys clicking, doors opening. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the night air. Freedom. They ran until their lungs burned. They didn't stop until the city lights faded behind them. Michael Turner, once a janitor, now a fugitive, held Emily's hand in the dark. They vanished into the countryside, renting a small house under false names. Michael worked odd jobs. Emily kept watch. For a while, they tasted peace. They laughed again. They dreamed again. But the past never stays buried. The law still hunted Michael. The media still called him a beast. And every time a car slowed outside their window, Emily's heart clenched. Yet still, they loved. Fiercely, desperately. Some stories don't end with crowns or happy ever-afters. Some stories end with scars, with love hidden in the shadows. Michael Turner was no hero by the world's measure. The world called him a criminal, a beast. But Emily called him hers. And in the end, isn't that what we all seek? To be someone's reason, to be someone's home. Justice never came from the courts. Karma never came from the law. But it came, one way or another, through his hands. And though the world may forget their names, the story remains. Because love, true love, does not bow to bars or gangs, or the judgment of strangers. It survives in whispers, in touches through steel, in the promise of tomorrow. And so their story closes here, for now. Or maybe, it waits for the day the past finally catches up. If this story moved you, tell me, was Michael a monster, or was he the justice his city refused to give? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that grip the heart and stir the soul.